Spring 1945. The Third Reich was crumbling, its cities reduced to burning skeletons, its people teetering on the brink of starvation. For years, the relentless machinery of German propaganda had drilled a singular warning into the minds of the populace. Allied soldiers were monsters who would mistreat, brutalize, or inflict even worse fates upon them. Consequently, as American troops advanced into shattered villages and ruined towns, countless German women barricaded themselves in basements, clutching their children in the dark, terrified that their end had arrived. Yet, what actually unfolded became one of the most poignant human stories from the war's final days. Stay with us until the end, because the moment one starving woman collapsed before an American soldier, everything she believed was about to change. A nation was starving. By the early months of 1945, food supplies within Germany had effectively vanished. The rail networks lay in ruins. Farms stood idle without fuel, and supply depots had been bombed into dust. To survive, many civilians were forced to scavenge for whatever meager sustenance remained. They dug frozen, burned potatoes from the fields, boiled thin soups from grass or nettles, and rationed stale crusts of bread among entire families. It was the women, the elderly, and the children who often bore the heaviest burden. Their husbands and sons were gone, fighting on distant fronts, or already lost to the war. All that remained in their wake was fear, deprivation, and a gnawing hunger. In some villages, not a single soul had eaten a proper meal in days. Some had gone without for over a week. And for one specific woman, the collapse of her country had finally caught up with her. When American troops finally rolled into her town, the civilians watched from behind shattered window panes and cracked doors. They braced themselves for shouting, for brutality, and for retribution. Instead, the Americans advanced quietly and cautiously, looking far more exhausted than threatening. For the first time in years, the German civilians beheld soldiers with clean uniforms, warm rations, and full canteens. Yet, no one dared approach them, paralyzed by the fear of harm, or, worse, summary execution. No one wished to risk being perceived as the enemy. They had endured enough of living in constant terror, chaos, and destruction. No one moved except for one woman who was too weak to walk, too hungry to remain standing, and too exhausted to care about the propaganda any longer. She stepped out onto the road and collapsed amidst the rubble and ruins of her beloved hometown. A U.S. infantryman was the first to notice her form against the dust. He had witnessed this level of desperation before in France, in Belgium, and in ruined towns across the continent. He knew that hunger respected no nationalities, skin colors, uniforms, or borders. Immediately, he dropped his pack and rushed toward her. She attempted to speak, but her voice was nothing more than a weak, frail rasp. Her hands shook violently, a symptom of profound weakness, starvation, and dehydration. The soldier shouted for a medic, but the corpsmen were occupied tending to wounded troops further back in the column. So, this American soldier did what any decent human being would do. He knelt beside her, unhooked his canteen, and held it gently to her lips. She flinched at his touch. It was a reaction born of decades of fear, driven by German propaganda that had told her never to trust these men. But the agony of thirst won out. She drank, and in a quiet voice that was barely audible, she whispered the same plea that many Germans uttered in those final days. "Please, help me. I can't take it anymore." The soldier lifted her gently by the shoulders. In that moment, she was not an enemy, nor a prisoner, but simply a human being in desperate need of aid. Reports from the era describe that he said something simple, words meant only to calm her spirit. "You're in safe hands now. He laid no claim of ownership, nor did he abuse his power or position. He was simply reassuring a terrified civilian who believed she was about to perish at any moment. The woman attempted to stand, but she could not. Her legs were simply too withered to support her weight. Seeing this, the American placed her arm over his shoulder and slowly walked her toward the unit's field kitchen. American field kitchens in occupied Germany often prepared heavy stews, cornbread, biscuits, potatoes, and watered-down coffee. According to military diaries from the 1st and 3rd U.S. armies, starving German civilians were frequently given leftovers after the troops had finished eating. The woman was handed a tin cup of soup, hot, salty, and rich compared to anything she had tasted in months. She wept as she swallowed the first spoonful, not merely because the food was delicious, but because she realized that everything she had been told about the Americans was wrong. Encounters like this, simple acts of kindness, began to spread quickly among the civilian population. Stories of American soldiers sharing their rations, handing out chocolate, or offering medical assistance circulated through the villages. Women who had once hidden in the dark now approached cautiously. Children began to follow the GIs, hoping for a stick of gum or a piece of candy. The myth of the American monster collapsed faster than the regime that had created it. For many German women, the first American they truly met was not a conqueror or a beast, but a human being just like them. He was the first person to offer them help in months. That starving woman, lifted off the ground by an American soldier, became one of many whose lives shifted in an instant. This change did not come from a great battle, a political speech, or a signed treaty, but from an act of human compassion at a time when the world had fallen apart. History tends to remember the battles and the strategies, but sometimes the true turning points of history happen quietly, when one soldier kneels beside a starving woman and says, "You're safe now." This is a true World War II story, proving that sometimes compassion is all it takes to shatter years of propaganda. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more true World War II stories.